managing my screen here. Okay. Great, people are coming in. Welcome everyone. Hi, Jody. I love how on time you guys are. Hi, Dina. Welcome, Devin, Annie. Great to see everyone. Can you see, Bob, people coming in on the participants?
Is it working?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are filing in. Got 70 people now and more coming, but let's start. I want to take advantage of the whole hour that we have together. I'm so honored that you're here with me today, Bob. Thank you for being here. And we have, I think, over 250 people registered today, which is extraordinary and a testament to people wanting to hear what you have to say. So thank you for being here.
Well, it's an honor for me to be here. As I've told many people, and I've told you, Vanessa, you're an extraordinary voice in this world today, and I would do anything to support your work.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. I wanted to, for people who don't know me and don't know the NUSHU Thought Leader Series, just introduce it very briefly. Our intention at this time was just to engage in conversations to help people. We wanted to engage in conversations that were relevant for people interested in personal growth and self-inquiry. And there's a flood of content out there. And so we're hoping that this is potent and helpful. And it's really intended for the viewers. It's really intended for you. And so we encourage you during the talk to please use the chat function, tell us what you're thinking, use the question box, ask us questions. We will spend a good portion of the time answering questions from you. We really want to know what's on your mind and in your hearts. And so please do that. Please engage with us. We really want to know what you're thinking. I wanted to just frame the way we're going to do this today. We are going to chat. We're going to take questions and answer them. Thank you to people who submitted them in advance. If you are now a regular NUSHU Thought Leader Series talk person, you know that you get an email before the event to submit questions in advance, and we answer those first. So if you have pressing questions, please do that. We will take questions, and then at the end, Bob will lead us in a 10-minute meditation, which I'm looking forward to very much. Please bear with the technology. I have many people in my home competing for Wi-Fi, lots of kids on Zoom calls. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it will all work beautifully. For those of you who don't know me, I came to Bob through my work with NUSHU. And what I'm really trying to do, my mission in the world, is to promote this idea of co-healing, where we can create a space of permission and an agreement amongst like-minded people to hold space of non-judgment and compassion. Simple as that. And we've been doing this through NUSHU Group virtually, and those groups have been global, which is really exciting. And so if you're interested in participating in a NUSHU group, please go to our website, www.nushu.com, NUSHU, register for the newsletter, and you will get information about that, plus future thought leader talks. Okay, Bob, welcome. My mentor, my friend, and really a voice, a place where I could say some things that I felt I couldn't say to anyone else. Part of my practice really has been saying things out loud. I believe so much that when you say something out loud, whether it's something shameful or something you're thinking about, that act is really catalyzing. And there have been a number of moments, Bob, where I've called you and told you things. And, you know, the best teachers in my life have always been the ones who have said, I'm always here for you. Whatever you say to me, I will receive with love and I won't judge you. And I don't really have any answers for you. I can't really teach you anything. I'm just going to hold space for you to figure it out on your own. And I think that's so much of what you do, Bob, is you say, you don't need me for the answers, but let me give you a tool. Let me show you this practice that's incredibly powerful for you to find those answers yourself. And so the title of this talk is How to Keep Your Center During a Storm. And I know that a lot of what you do is to help educate people on the benefits of TM. And I think that we do have a lot of people in this webinar who have TM practices. And so we're actually going to open up a little poll right now before we start, and I start asking Bob questions about whether you have a meditation practice. And then we will chat and come back to the answers when we're done. So you work so hard, Bob, to bring TM to so many people, but I want to ask you a bit about your own practice, your own inner world. How do you keep your center during a storm, right? A lot of people, you know, everybody has things that happen to them, tough things that happen to them, right? It's part of being human, including you. How do you keep your center, you, Bob Roth, with a 50-year practice of TM, having taught so many people, having guided so many people? What do you do? How do you navigate it?
It's the age-old wisdom. It's the wisdom of the ages. It's the simplest language, you know. Know thyself, be true to thyself. I think if one has an internal, what is the word, barometer, something, a resonance, that if something feels wrong on any level, not truthful, then don't do it. And if something feels truthful and right, then proceed gently, proceed in a way that doesn't, you know, bowl people over. But that's, for me, if I look back over these many years doing what I've done, I mean, meditate, first of all, to know thyself, there's nothing more important than a meditation practice. There's nothing more important than closing your eyes and then, you know, the analogy I use of the ocean with the waves on the surface, and then the ocean is silent at its depth. And if you're talking about keeping your center in a storm, you can never keep your center if your boat isn't anchored to the depth of the ocean. You just can't. It's an impossibility. So a meditation that allows you to access that core stability within yourself and opens up to yourself your interior of life. Then from that, it's a simple dictum of just be true to yourself. And I do what I know to be right, and I don't do as much as possible, I do what I know to be right, and I don't do what I know to be wrong. And I'm sure the people who are listening to this, who are attracted to NUSHU and attracted to you, know that situation, because if you're doing something that feels wrong, you can't breathe, right? You just can't breathe. So it's not difficult. I mean, there's times it's difficult, but ordinarily it's not difficult. So that would be my answer.
Yeah.
Just be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Was that too abstract?
No. I mean, I think that's the way that I basically navigate everything too, right? I mean, the only word I've ever associated with, you know, people use different words, you know, God, the universe, source, you know, my word is truth, right? It's the way things are as I learn to discover them and just are, and just navigating to that. That's sort of the only thing I've come up with.
Well, there's this great ancient proverb that says, truth alone triumphs. It doesn't say truth triumphs along with other things. Truth alone triumphs. That may take time, but truth alone triumphs, and that which is closest to the truth lasts the longest. So I think in these times when when the outer external, everything's changing and you have doubts and you don't, what's going on now with the coronavirus and the economy and everything, all we really have is that ability to access within. No one can take that away from you. That ability to dive within and access that core of yourself, whatever term you want to use. And then from there, all the choices and things that come along, it has to feel right.
You know, but I think that sometimes we confuse simple with easy,
Oh,
right? So it's simple, but it's challenging. And I wanted to ask you about emotions, right? Because there is that place inside that is calm, but does that mean that we don't have strong emotions in that place?
ho, ho, ho. We have very strong emotions, but emotions can be complicated. The simplicity is underneath all of that, underneath all of that, that anchor sits on a settled bed. And that's what allows us to maintain ourselves through all those emotions. No, emotions, are you kidding? You feel your emotions more as you continue to grow. You are more accepting of your emotions. You are more kind to yourself and give yourself more space for the ups and downs because you have a center. So when I say simple, it's that level of life is, you know, the quiet level of the ocean. It is very simple to get to that. As we know through at least transcendental meditation, the process is simple, but the path is challenging. Very, but still, it's when all the complications are going on, you just go back to that thing. Is this true? Is this true? Is this right? I mean, you asked me a question, and that's the thing, that with all the complications that are going on, and there's so many confounding variables, and there's so many demands and pulls and impossibility, and it's not a selfish thing. That ability is not, it's the last thing is being selfish. From that centered, anchored self, you're able to then give more appropriately to more people and less resentfully, because you are rejuvenating yourself from within yourself. The energy is coming from within yourself. You're not asking, oh, you're supposed to make me happy, and that job's supposed to make me happy. And well, I've been with you for all these years, and why aren't you this way? Yeah. That's an impossible task.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that, because people have said to me, wow, you must just be Zen all the time, right? You're very Zen. I said, I'm not Zen at all. I feel deep sadness, and I feel anger, and I feel all of those things. And actually, I think that a practice of self-inquiry and feeling those things, saying, I feel this thing, I'm going to feel it, I'm not going to escape from it, allows you to feel it deeper, because you know that when you go into that feeling, you're not going to become lost in it. You can feel it fully, completely, without numbing yourself, and still come back to center. But I just don't, but I think that word calm sometimes might imply to people, always happy, always calm. And I'm so glad you agree that that's not what that is.
No, and the thing is when you use that word deep sadness, deep this, the key word is deep. You have access to that deep depth of feelings. And I just feel like a practice. I mean, I taught you transcendental meditation, I think many of the people, but there needs to be, whatever practice you do has to give access to those deep reaches within, because it opens those areas up. Also, as you settle down and as the mind accesses that quiet, then it brings the body to that deep state of rest. And we've talked about this, the trauma, stresses from the past, and what do they say? The first 1,000 days from conception until you're 2.5 or 3 years old. Those are some of the most formative times of your life. They're going to sort of, the stresses, the traumas that you experience unconsciously. And there's that book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, I'm reading it right now.
No, it's phenomenal. Body Keeps the Score. People watching this, you should get that. Because it says there's no real filter between mind and body. There's no wall. It's just it's like becomes more abstract. Body is concrete, mind is more abstract, feelings more abstract, but it's still one continuum. So you have an experience. Someone hurts your feelings, or someone is abusive to you, or you grow up with neglect or whatever, that lodges mind into the body. And so you may even forget that experience, but all of your actions are actually informed by it. And you may not even remember it when you're in therapy or when you're talking to a best friend, but it's lodged in the body. It's changed the way your neural pathways are. And again, the value of a meditation practice on a regular basis, Vanessa, the value of a regular practice is that by giving the body that deep rest, those knots of stress that sleep doesn't even get rid of dissipate, dissolve. And then we're freer to face the things we face, because meditation doesn't get rid of all problems, but it puts us in a much better position and a stronger position to deal with whatever comes our way, and also wake up the creative networks in our brain and be progressive, not just be lost in the past all the time.
I love that you mentioned the body, because I think a lot of people think of meditation as a process of the mind, right? A mindfulness process, that it's something that happens in the mind. So tell us more about why it's in the body, really, why these things are lodged in the body and we release them from the body, and how meditation is really in that place.
Because there's no difference between mind and body. Yeah. If you have an experience that you're worried about something, subjectively, your mind's worried about something, well, your adrenal glands are pumping out cortisol. Yeah. You know, and if you're threatened by something, the adrenal glands are pumping out adrenaline. Or if you're sad about something, then your serotonin levels go down, which is the happiness neurotransmitter. Or you're very happy about something is going your well, then serotonin levels go up. There's no difference. It's a continuum. The thing about mindfulness approaches to meditation, they're called cognitive processes. And I am in support of, as you've heard me say, we need many tools in the toolbox to deal with life. Mm-hmm. I say they should be evidence-based. I say that you should see that if you're doing something for the mind, you're not just, oh, that was a nice self-indulgent experience. You would like to see that it's actually healing the body as well. But cognitive processes, and that's what they call open monitoring or mindfulness practices, which is learning to dispassionately observe your thoughts, your moods, your feelings, your behavior. Those are largely cognitive processes. It does translate into the way your body functions and reacts to things, but they don't give this profound relaxation deeper than sleep that you find in this transcending process. And it's there that those deeply rooted stresses, those knots from traumas as a child, or when we work with a veteran who maybe is so traumatized by a bomb that blew up in Fallujah, and now anytime there's a car backfires, they're right back in the amygdala, which is your fight or flight center, doesn't know geography. Amygdala doesn't say, oh, you're not over in Iraq anymore, you're here. It doesn't know. The amygdala hears a sound and you are in fight or flight mode. Mm-hmm. So if you have a practice that gives your body profound rest, then you're not giving the opportunity for the body to heal itself. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. So let's talk about trauma right now. Fear, this collective consciousness, feeling of fear that I think we all see. Tell us about what you think is happening globally with fear. And I'm also curious about your thoughts about this sort of big collective pause. What is that going to do for us? Is it going to help people want to pause, reflect, or are people fighting it and they're just going to, fight it and they're uncomfortable with it? Or is it an embracing or a fighting? What do you think is happening sort of collectively? What do you think the impact will be on people's capacity to engage in this kind of conscious self-inquiry because of what's happening? I know that's a big abstract question, but I'm dying to hear what you think.
I'll answer your second question first, and then we'll see if I remember your first question.
I'll remind you if you don't.
I think what's going to happen is some people are going to grow. They have something called post-traumatic growth in the field of trauma now, where they say a person has a traumatic experience, and that traumatic experience can be, it's not just you're in combat. Traumatic experience can be, well, that's what we're doing. You're on the front lines of the healthcare crisis. A traumatic experience can be a fear of violence in the home. we live in a pandemic of trauma. So the thing is how do we have from the past or from our practice or whatever, do we have in our genes the ability to turn that experience into growth, or does it undermine us and weaken us and ultimately destroy us? And I think what we're going to see is a lot of people, hopefully, at least some people, probably bell curve, you know, there'll be 20% of the people who will just thrive in this, 20 people will just really get trampled, and then rest of the 60% of the people will grow from it to a certain extent, maybe fall back. So I would just say, I'm just sort of touching on some of the topics you were asking about, and I'll come back to that. The other question you asked about how people are feeling and why fear. I think this is a term that's used in the meditation text, if we are object referral, if we know who we are based on, oh, I'm 69 years old and I'm a business person, or I'm a grandfather, or I'm 40 years old and I'm a mom, and I know myself in terms of outer things. And then anytime outer things change, then we lose ourselves. Oh, my kids have gone away to school. Who am I? Or there's a change in my relationship and now I'm single. Who am I? I knew myself, or I was once 21 when I looked in the mirror and now I'm 50. Who am I? If we know ourselves only in that terms, if my sense of my identity is that, then when anything changes, and it inevitably must change, it causes fear. It causes uncertainty. It causes lack of fear. There's nothing to hold on to. But what those experiences ultimately do, I believe they're a gift from nature. It's like if you put your hand on a hot burner, you know, you keep burning your hand, ultimately there's pain. Thankfully, there's pain, because if there was no pain when you put your hand on a hot burner, you burn up your hand, but there's pain. So this isn't working anymore. This, knowing myself in terms of outer stuff, the way I look, that's never going to work. So it drives us to get away from that pain. It drives us to find security, safety, equanimity, and sustain over time. And you hear for all time, oh, meditation. Meditation somehow does that. True happiness lies within. So at some point, we've been hearing about meditation and it hasn't been relevant. You know, yeah, fine, that's for other people, or I could never do that, or I'm not into that stuff, or that's woo-woo. And then all of a sudden, there's like a receptor side in the brain that goes, huh, inside. Happiness. You know what I'm saying? I'm going on too long. I apologize.
No, I love it. I do want to ask you a follow-up question though, which is, I think everybody wants to be in that 20%, right? On the bell curve. Like, I'm sure all the attendees, like, you don't really want to be in the middle. You definitely don't want to be in the side that falls apart. We all want to be in. So besides meditation, which we know is really powerful, what can people do in terms of mindset, in terms of the way they approach it, the way that they look at this, in order to give themselves the best chance of being in post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic falling apart?
There's obviously all the things they talk about, the importance of community. I mean, I think the service that you provide, Vanessa, is enormously valuable. This conversation we're having right now, in all the gazillions of interviews I've ever done. And I started off this conversation by saying that truth is and I said this when I was on your podcast, I love having conversations with you. I mean, this was like, bam. It's like, okay, Bob, we are going deep here.
Yeah. I don't mess around.
Just like, wow, this is fantastic. And I think the reason why people love the service that you provide is that you give the room and it's comfortable to say anything. And I think this is absolutely vitally important. So communication, this sort of thing. But I also think there's things that we don't value, simple healing measures. And I've been on a jag about this lately. It's going to sound silly. We don't value sleep. You know, people say, well, I can get by on 4 hours of sleep. No, you can't. No, you can't.
Right.
Actually can't. You might push through and you might be okay, but it's going to catch up with you. Lack of sleep is probably the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's, for high blood pressure. There's something called sleep dirt, which is the waste product of the brain work through with the brain cells firing all day, working all day. And at the end of the day, at night, there's 7 grams of what's called sleep dirt, and it's about the size of a teaspoon. Mm. And when you sleep at night, there are it's amazing, like canals are formed in the brain, and that sleep dirt gets flushed out of your brain. Now, what happens when you don't let that sleep dirt get flushed out of your brain? Plaque. And what does plaque lead to? Alzheimer's.
But let's talk about sleep for a second, because I think people think of sleep as sometimes it's a badge of honor. I only need 4 hours of sleep and I'm incredibly productive. And so this attachment to our productivity as the only measure of our worth. And I had an experience actually where I was, doing homeschooling for 5 children and cooking all the meals and cleaning and the laundry and my business and doing everything. And I felt myself again attached to this idea of, I am a superwoman, I can do it all. I must do it all myself perfectly without help. And I realized, oh gosh, I really haven't kicked that demon, have I? Because it's that conditioning to, you must do more, rest less, and that is how you're going to have self-worth.
No, and the thing is, there are times when that happens. There are times when you have to, when you have to stand up, and this is crazy times, and I just can't, you have to be flexible and you have to make things work. You can't be rigid. Yeah. So that happens, but there's no data. There's no data. You can do right now, just not right this second, but Google sleep and all the research that's come out about sleep these days. I know Arianna Huffington wrote a book about that, but all the time there's new research coming out. And with kids, they say a child who gets 1 hour, let's say the child is in 6th grade, and they get 1 hour less sleep than they should get, they have the cognitive capacity, not a sixth grader, but a 4th grader. It has a powerful effect. So there's information that's there that tells us, but for a long time, doctors knew that cigarette smoking was bad, but they still smoked. So there's, habit patterns and stresses that you want to get out. But I think that this notion of I can get by with less sleep is it's a dangerous notion. And the thing is, a lot of people say, well, I can't sleep. I have insomnia. Meditation helps enormously with that. But I've been reading up and I can say 3 things that a person can do that now that can allow them to actually fall asleep faster and sleep better at night. Want to hear them?
Yes, please.
So the first one is it's not like you can run around and then work hard and then you do the dishes, you get the kids in bed, you do all these different things and your emails and then, okay, now it's 11:30, I'm going to get into bed, I'm going to go to sleep. No, you're not. Well, some people can, but a lot of people can't. What the experts say we should do is you work out, you're a marvelous athlete, you stretch, you prepare before you go for a run or you go for a swim. They say an hour before going to bed, you need to start the process of going to sleep. Your process of going to sleep starts an hour before you get into bed. Now you can wash dishes at that time, you could take a bath, you could do some light reading, but you can say, oh, I want to be in bed 11:15. 10:15, I'm starting to get ready to go to sleep. Second thing they say, I become this mini sleep expert. I hope you don't mind me sharing this stuff.
No, please do.
The second thing they say is, and you've all heard this, you need to turn off in that hour beforehand, you need to turn off your computer. You need to turn off the TV. You need to turn off, as impossible, and I'm not one of these woo-woo guys who thinks that, you live in an ideal world. It's tough, but worse is to toss and turn for 4 hours in bed or whatever. So they say turn off the TV, your iPhone or smartphone or computer. Why? Not just because watching the news is so unsettling, it's the blue light that comes from these devices, that what they do is they suppress the production of melatonin in your brain. Melatonin is your sleep hormone. You don't go to sleep if you don't have melatonin. And melatonin is suppressed with blue light. So, you know, you could, that's just the second thing. This, when I learned all this stuff, it completely changed my attitude towards sleep. And then the third thing, which is a little bit more interesting and a little bit more obscure, is they say your bedroom should be cool. Now, I know there's some people who are chronically cold and they want to have heat on, but what's happening is your body is just starting to, naturally, as you get ready for sleep, your body starts to cool down. Your body temperature just starts to cool down. And they say your room temperature should be between 60 and 70 degrees. And your room should be like a dark, cool cave, because that way you'll actually fall asleep. Just have a ton of blankets. You'll sleep for 10 minutes.
I like this. An hour before I want to sleep, I tell my children, I'm going into my cool, dark cave for my hour. Don't bother me. I'm going to go to sleep. I like that last one. I hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go to bed in a warm room. It disrupts your circadian rhythm and you can't fall asleep. Anyway.
All right. So I want to get to questions, Bob, because we have some really great ones.
Okay.
So I'm just going to dive in. Francesca from Italy asks, I find it difficult to be centered during stressful moments. Sometimes people are aware of it and take advantage. How can I be myself and fully centered and still empathetic?
If you are yourself and fully centered, truly fully centered and truly yourself, you'll be an ocean of empathy and an ocean of compassion. If we're not ourselves, if we're stressed, if we haven't slept well, if we haven't done the things, we have to do the things that set up the conditions that allow us to be ourselves. So those things are exercise, those things are eating right, those things are meditation practice, those things are sleeping right, those things are being honest with people, being like Vanessa. Then you're going to be yourself. But if you're tired or stressed or bandwidth, then everything's too much. Everything's too much.
And I think if you're really centered in that place, you can't be taken advantage of.
No.
People can treat you poorly, right? You can't control what other people do, but you can't be taken advantage of because you can't really be touched in that place. Yeah. All right. So another question. Sarah from England. What would you recommend as the next stages on from Transcendental Meditation? Should I study with the Maharishi University, further my practice, both? I'm desiring further expansion. I've been meditating for 38 years. I have a follow-on question to this, but maybe answer that and then I have a follow-on.
There are advanced techniques, which Vanessa, I want to teach you at some point, advanced techniques to transcendental meditation, several of them that you can get after you've been meditating for a while. If you think of transcendental meditation as planting a seed for, say, a big redwood tree or a beautiful apple tree, that's the seed. Then there's advanced techniques you can get after several months of meditation. There's about 4 of them that are like a little fertilizer to help that tree. The seed is the most important thing, but to help that tree grow more nutrients to it. So that's one thing I would do. They have these weekend retreats. They even have some Zoom half-day virtual retreats. Wonderful to give your mind and body an opportunity to go deep and get rest. Really, rest is so important, because then when you're rested and resilient, as Vanessa said, then you're not shaken. You're not a victim. And the last thing is they have a lot of online courses that you can take, free or next to nothing, Maharishi International University or anywhere, about consciousness, about your body, Ayurveda. There's so many things you can do. The wonderful thing is you just have to decide. If you decide from the core of your being that this is important, growth, your own growth, and when you grow, you're going to be much more generous with and much more supportive and much wiser for the people you love, then it'll come. It'll come. So it's a wonderful question, and there's a lot you can do. Talk to your local TM center.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Here's my follow-up question. So I know that you talk about TM as a tool, and it's not a religion, and people can use it as a way to reduce stress and to flush stress out of their body. And If they're not interested in it in a spiritual way, they don't have to be. It still works for everybody who does it. But for me, I see my meditation practice as sort of a portal, right? I get a lot of information when I'm very, very still, and that information to me is little droppings of the truth, right? So that I can start to approach, capital T truth. And so I'm really intrigued by the potential for a spiritual path. And I would say, Bob, that the way that you live your life shows that you're on a deeply spiritual path, and you don't talk so much about your spiritual path, which I appreciate, because sometimes the talking about it interferes with the living of it. I've seen that a lot, but I sort of can't help myself. I'm so curious. I would love to hear from you what it's opened up to you, what 50 years of TM and teaching and a life of service has opened up to you, and where it's taken you.
Well, first of all, if you pull one leg on a chair, all the four legs come. So a person could come to meditation because they have high blood pressure, and all these benefits are going to come, spiritual, whatever you want to use. Just as if a person comes because they want to be in tune with their higher self, and so they start to meditate for that reason. Well, if you have migraine headaches, that's going to get in the way of your attunement with your higher self. Mm-hmm. So whatever, and meditation, transcending, will address that in one swoop, in one process, because spirituality and the body are not different. It's a continuum. Mm. So a person who's spiritual, those parts of the brain, which is largely your frontal lobes, prefrontal cortex, that's connected together. It's wake up those parts of your brain that allow those big thinking and intuitive insights, along with the default mode network, etc. And it calms the amygdala. It calms down. It lets your amygdala, which is your fight or flight. And I'm sorry, I'm going science, but then I'm going to come back to what you're saying. But I just want to make the point that it is one continuum. There's a neurophysiology of enlightenment, and it's one. For me, I just think that the whole thing, and so what I appreciate about you, the whole thing about spirituality, someone said to me, well, you've been meditating 50 years, do you get upset? I said, yeah, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I think what spirituality really means ultimately is a growth towards those full human values, like the human capacity to love, the human capacity to care, the human capacity to be resilient, the human capacity for friendliness, the human capacity for discernment, for strength, for saying no, for doing what's right. That, to me, there doesn't have to be a divinity. Just let's be as fully human. And in that fully human, there's great humility in that fully human. And it's not a false humility. It's a truthful humility. So I would say of my years of meditating is, you don't have to be something other than yourself. I still love baseball, I'm myself, but I'm not, and as you are with your practice, and as anybody is nothing special here. It's just, we become more our inner self, and less the product of outer hammering us. That makes sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to we've got a number of other questions.
I'll do shorter answers, I promise.
Yeah, it's tough because I love your answers. I want you to tell us everything, but this is speed round. We started speed round. So Colleen from New York asks, does it take longer for older people to see benefits from TM? Does the older brain or mind respond as well, and do they get the same effects, or is it limited?
Same benefits. It has nothing to do with age. If anything, it has to do with just how I've lived my life. If you have two lawns in the front yard of two houses, and one hasn't been watered for a while and one's sort of watered, but the one that hasn't been watered is pretty parched soil, and you put the same amount of water on both, the one that's a little greener will turn greener faster, but the one that's been parched, it'll come along, maybe take a few weeks, another week or two of watering, but there's no, age isn't not a factor.
Right. Another question that came in, my 84-year-old mom is in a nurse's home. She has COVID-19. She got sick there and is very handicapped, Parkinson's. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear that. I got her on a group call, and I have PTSD, insomnia from years of violence. I'm extra sad, making space to be, breathe, trying TM but hard. Any thoughts or tools?
No, you've been trying TM on the phone, I think. Have you learned it the way you, who's the woman's first name? What's the woman's first name?
It's an anonymous attendee, so I don't know if we have an ability to ask.
So the thing is if you learn transcendental meditation from a teacher, certified teacher, hour a day over 4 days, then I would like you to contact your teacher and they can support you by phone. If you haven't been able to do that yet because of the shelter in place, then the nanosecond that you can, go to your center and learn to meditate. It will make a big difference. And there is a course fee that's involved. If you can't afford that, then you can, I'm going to give everybody my email. This is my real email. You can email me, then go to anybody else to me. Bob@davidlynchfoundation.org, because I appreciate Vanessa so much. So Bob@davidlynchfoundation.org. If you would like to find a teacher or you have questions, then I'll help you with that. And so I would just say to you, learn transcendental meditation properly. If you have and you're not getting benefits from it, then I'll put you in touch with the teacher and help you through that. And then everything else you just need to do. You need to take care of yourself. It's not going to go away. You need to go to sleep earlier. You need to do some exercise. I'm going on too long. You need to take care of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. A number of questions, and I'm going to read this one from Diane about sort of being distracted or finding it difficult to meditate or focus during this time. Hi, Bob, you taught me to meditate 10 years ago. I've been meditating daily ever since. Since being stuck at home, I'm easily distracted during meditation. How can I regain focus?
Email me and I'll refresh your practice.
Okay, great.
Short answer, that was a short answer.
That was a short answer.
Bob@davidlynchfoundation.org.
Danielle says, I'm working on my internal resonance and listening and knowing myself, being able to dive into my core. I'm very used to listening to other people, not trusting myself and looking for others to show me the way. Can you give me tips on how to dive into my core to know myself?
The fact that you know you want to do that is like well begun is half done. And you will, you'll discover your path. Some of the things I've been talking about, because it's a mental thing, I feel confused or then we think we're going to sort it out in our mind, and we want to do that, but bring your body with you. So so many times I talk to people and they're upset and they're going in this downward cycle, and I say, are you eating well? No. Are you sleeping well? No. Doing any exercise? No. It's like, it's going to be so hard because you're not giving your mind the support that it needs. So I would just say those basics and be true to yourself and keep looking. I mean, it's, and it doesn't have to be transcendental meditation, but meditation is no longer a luxury. It needs to, too long. We do everything from the neck down, exercise, eat. We need to do some exercise here. So meditation, sleep well, eat well. Yeah.
A follow-on question to...
One last thing. I'm not giving you a simplistic answer. I'm giving you the deepest, most profound answer that I can give you.
Yeah.
Work together. Be kind to your body, be kind to your mind, be kind to your emotions. Work together, support all the elements of you.
Yeah, there's no real quick fix answer, is there?
No.
No. A quick question. Do you believe alcohol to be destructive to a spiritual mind-body practice?
I believe abuse of anything is destructive to a spiritual mind-body practice. Alcohol to I don't drink, but I never liked it. I grew up in a household that no one ever drank, so it was never, I never got it. But I know a whole lot of TM teachers who enjoy wine and, you know, people who meditate. But it is true that if you drink too much alcohol, it shuts down your prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the size of your fist behind your forehead. It governs judgment, planning, decision-making, and your sense of self, And that's why you can't drink and drive, because when your prefrontal cortex goes offline, you have bad judgment. So I would drink in moderation. I'm not a big fan of do's and don'ts, everything in moderation.
Where'd that question go? Oh, from Aaron. I read The Body Keeps the Score from your recommendation on an earlier podcast, which recommends yoga as one tool to help healing from trauma. Do you have any daily practices you would recommend to a meditator looking to rid the body of underlying stress? I think you answered that.
Yoga practice and a pranayama, breathing practice. Breath is so important. Breathing through I'm going to go on. You don't want me to do this. Can I say?
Yeah.
Okay. When we're anxious, this is for everybody. When we're anxious, we breathe through our mouth. We bring no oxygen up into the brain. The amygdala goes nuts, your reactivity center. When you breathe through your nose, up into your brain, you're bringing oxygen to the brain. It calms your brain. So a pranayama breathing exercise, something that you can learn through a TM center, along with your yoga postures and your meditation and rest, very powerful in the I'd like to say fight against stress, but very powerful.
Yeah. So I'm watching the time because it's my job to watch the time. I'm going to do one more question, and then I do want to leave time for meditation that you're going to guide, because that's what we promised all of you.
I could talk for hours. Okay, go ahead.
Literally, we could talk for hours, but these good people have lives to go back to. So I think let me see if I can sort of summarize the questions. A couple of questions about, I've started TM, I had a practice, I've fallen off the wagon, I don't know how to get back. Any advice on how to get back to a practice, keep it regular, or be able to keep it consistent?
I do now every morning and every afternoon a meditation on the phone, and there's like thousands of people calling in. If you email me, and it's every day there's a refresher and then a group meditation over the phone with like thousands of people. And a lot of people are saying that they're using this time to get back into a good routine. So email me, bob@davidlynchfoundation.org, and I'll send you the information that you can call in and the time.
And I've participated on the calls with my husband, and they're wonderful. So thank you, Bob, for doing that for all of us. And so before we wrap up and move on to the meditation, I wanted to mention two things to everybody. First, Bob just launched a podcast, which is very exciting. Please tell us about that. And then also please tell us about the Heal the Healers initiative that you're involved with.
So the podcast is called Stay Calm. It's on iHeartRadio. It's downloadable with Apple and Spotify, any of those things. It's 5 days a week. It's about 7 or 8 minutes. It gets downloaded every morning. And I tell some stories of all my years of teaching transcendental meditation, particularly the work we're doing with foundations. So stories of transformation of a woman who's survived domestic violence, or a child with nonverbal autism. And it's just a nice thing. It's a nice thing. And they say it's really good if you subscribe to it, because then iHeartRadio knows that it's great. I don't get any money from it, but then then they do more promotion of it. So if you could subscribe, you just Stay Calm, Bob Roth.
Great.
The other one is, if you have a pencil, write down healthehealersnow.org. Healthehealersnow.org tells you everything about the work we're doing with the doctors, nurses, and other healthcare providers, including custodial staff and orderlies, who are risking their lives for us. And it's our David Lynch Foundation, it's our work to bring this meditation for free to as many of them as we can, not just in the US, but now it's all over the world.
Amazing. That's great. Yes, please, everyone, check that out and subscribe to Bob's podcast. Before I go on to thank you for being here, I do want to thank everyone for being on. We know that time is really precious. And so we feel really honored that you've been on with us today. And I wanted to give you a sneak peek of upcoming talks that we're doing. We're doing this once a week in this NUSHU Thought Leader Series. And so next week, I'm going to be speaking with Elena Brower about living the life you choose. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to share the next ones. I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble with my team, but the following week, I'm speaking to Christy Turlington Burns about maternal health during COVID-19, followed by a breathing class with Belisa Vranich, which is really interesting, learning to breathe in the proper way. And the next week, a conversation about the power of writing as a portal to creativity and self-discovery with my dear friend Drew Barrymore, and then a talk about trauma. So if any of these topics interest you, please go to www.nushu.com, register for our newsletter. You'll get information about them. We won't send you too many emails, I promise. Or you can look us up on Instagram at NUSHU, NUSHU. We always have information there and links in bio to join the talks. So Bob, I can't thank you enough. I could literally talk to you all day. We could have these conversations all day. I don't know how this hour went so quickly. I really appreciate your advice, how forthcoming you are. And mostly I just appreciate you as a human being, as my friend, as my mentor, as my teacher. So thanks for being you.
First and foremost friend, first and foremost friend.
Yeah. Bob is going to lead us in a meditation. We did a poll at the beginning about whether people have a TM practice or not. Many of you do, but if you do not, this meditation is still for you. Yeah, let's see. 64% a TM practice, 35% other types, 5% don't currently have. So I'm not going to say anything at the end of the meditation in case you want to just continue to sit. I don't want to interrupt that. So we will do this. Bob will cue the end of 10 minutes. And then if you choose to sit longer, please do. Thank you for being with us. And I'll turn it over to Bob.
And Vanessa, you're a real blessing. A real blessing. I think everybody feels so good. I feel so good from just spending this time with you.
Oh, good.
So good. So good. And Harper is great. You work with, I mean,
the best.
Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to, in keeping with Vanessa's approach, which is to give everyone the space to be themselves, we're going to have 10 minutes and I will time it. You don't have to worry about it. If you do transcendental meditation, please just feel comfortable doing transcendental meditation. If you do another form of meditation, please feel comfortable doing that in this quiet. And those of you who have no practice, I'm just going to tell you a very simple breathing process you can do for the 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and you can lie down if you want to do it. The main focus here is no straining, no forcing. And the breathing exercise is just elegant in its simplicity. I want you to just breathe in through your nostrils, from your abdomen, up into your lungs, into your head. Hold it for 2 seconds, and then just out through your lips, just almost like a basketball that gets flattened. And then hold it for 2 seconds, and then in through your nostrils. Now you can do that, and I'm going to say one more thing about that. There are many breathing techniques that you're supposed to pay attention to your breath and your sound and your body and this, and then you don't let your mind wander. Let your mind wander. Do whatever you want. All we're doing here is just allowing the air, we're bringing the air up into the amygdala, the oxygen up into the brain, holding it for a second or two, and then just out. So you can plan I don't care what you do. And if you want to do it lying down, so we'll do it for 10 minutes. And again, my parting huge thank you to for all of us, to you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Bob.
Amazing person. Okay, so let's close the eyes, and everybody just wait about a half a minute before you begin either the breathing or TM or whatever practice you do. And again, don't mind the time. And we're just going to go right through. No one's going to say anything. You're done when you're done. All right, so let's close our eyes, wait a half a minute, and then start your practice.